Good afternoon, everybody. It's Mike Hamley here. Welcome to another episode of Indeed, the independent podcast about independent wrestling. We're we're back. I'm back. I can sit in a chair.
Yes.
I get to talk about independent wrestling with Reg.
Finally. Oh my God. It's been so long.
I've been missing this. It's been, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks roughly, and too long. I've watched so many good shows and I haven't got to sit here and talk about shit. And I'm just happy to be here. I've got Reg with me. What's up?
Yes. In the building. It's your boy, Media Man, your favorite rapper, your favorite writer, your favorite podcaster. Back to talk independent wrestling. I'm so excited. And since Indeed started, we've been talking about this wrestling company pretty often. I think almost on a weekly basis, we've been singing the praises of this great Canadian wrestling company. And we are so excited today to have a very inaugural part of C4 Wrestling. Mark is in the building. How are you today, Mark? And what's going on?
Hey guys, I'm good. Mike, thanks for sitting in a chair for me, and that means a lot. I'm glad you're able to be back. Hopefully this isn't too much torture. No, it's good to be here. It's the day before a show, so a million things going on.
Right. Thank you for taking the time, because we know how tumultuous it is before a show. You don't like this. The day before a show is so crazy if people don't know what goes on in a promoter's mind, wrestler's mind, fans' mind, everybody's minds. Everything's going crazy at the same time. You could possibly have your whole day, your whole life could be thrown for a loop if a wrestler misses a flight or anything crazy happens, and all these things definitely always happen. How do you try to stay calm before a huge show like this?
I mean, like this is our 15th anniversary.
Right.
So I've been doing it for long enough, but I'm still got nerves, still stressed always. So I got these gray hairs at 39. Yeah. I mean, I keep it once a month for a reason.
Right.
I'm not early on. I think I tried to let's try running other towns or let's try doing this. And I'm like, I'd rather try and set C4 as a destination than tour it around. And I think
straight up
when all those years ago, I think when I finally realized that, I was like, okay, like PWG does that. They're a destination. Yep. They don't need to be, they don't need to tour. They don't need to be places. And there's nothing wrong with that if you can make a go of it. Like GCW is doing amazing, or
exactly
a bunch of other places doing that right now, especially on the West Coast too. A few places that are hitting a few different cities and states. But for me, I want to do it for fun, and I don't want to lose the fun of it. And the stress fun balance is not quite always in balance. So yeah, it's a matter of trying to keep a balance, and that's why I do once a month. And trying to having a young family and having a job and having other things I'm trying to make a go of. It's easier after all these years to sort of compartmentalize things and not let it dominate everything.
Right.
I don't know if that's answering anything you just asked, but
no, it is.
Okay. Yeah, so as you can tell, my mind's scattered because I know what the next 24 hours entail and what I still gotta do today, what I gotta do tomorrow, and hopefully things are smooth. No snowstorms coming that I know of. Right. No missed flights yet. No canceled flights yet. People are good. No minor car accidents yet. Everything seems good. So hopefully now it's just right now currently it's the stress of pre-sales this. I wish it was that.
Right.
I'm hoping that people are coming out. That's the stress right now.
Gotcha. 15 years. That's a lot of years. First of all.
It is.
Did you guys go about it differently to book the 15th year anniversary show than you would a regular show, or did it just feel like we're moving on, we're doing our thing, it's another show?
Yeah, I mean, for our 10th anniversary, I was able to do 2 nights in a row at our own venue and do that, and that was like a big deal. I'm not saying this one isn't a big deal, but I think the last year has kind of I feel it's a cheat saying it's our 50th anniversary because we didn't run for year and a half because of the pandemic. Before that, like I've always prided ourselves on consistency, and that's how I feel like we built what we have is consistency. And I remember since day one, it was always like I want to be able to tell the people here for our first show when our next show is, because I don't want to. You have your captive audience, right? So you got to build on that. So to go back to your question, though, I think like for me right now, I'm in a, especially since like we started back up a year ago, September. We got to run September, November, December. Then we had to shut down again until last March. We came back last March. So basically, since March, I had a whole bunch of things lined up for the rest of 2022. Commitments to people. So I try to approach every show as kind of a bigger show, and every show is something special. So not trying to be like every show is special. So this one, but that's really what I've tried to do in the last year. So yeah, I knew the 15th was coming up. It's I think I put together a good card for it. Like Blackwood versus Gresham to me was one of our most important matches since we came back the first time around. That was one of what we put on. And I thought that would be a really appropriate match to host tomorrow night. And then I think I've also got a lot of our regulars on the card with some new faces and just always trying to mix it up.
I'm so excited for Blackwood and Gresham again. I've shamelessly tweeted this several times this year, but I watched that match. I watched their match from Time and Tide like once a week still.
Mike is always like that match.
It's on my it's nothing's. I don't care. Nothing's taking it out of my like. It's we'll do the list thing, but it's on my list this year. Like that is one of my favorite matches I've seen this year. I watch that all the time. So them having the rematch now and with the C4 title on the line,
no, that means a lot. No, Gresham has always been awesome to work with. He used to come up for us years back, and then before the pandemic, I remember we just put the championship on Garcia, and that was a match I was trying to do was Gresham and Garcia, and then that was scheduled for April 2020, and then March 2020 happened. So, but anyways, once we finally started getting running back, we started talking, and he was willing to come up, and then a couple of days before the last match, he's like, I really want to, can I have some time with Blackwood? I really think we could do something awesome. I'm like, yeah, by all means, whatever you want, man. You tell me what you want to do. And so, yeah, they went out there, and I think it helped elevate Blackwood. Definitely. I mean, even self-esteem wise, just him having just an incredible 20-minute match with Gresham, who's, in my opinion, one of the best in the world. And being able to run it back, I'm excited for. And I think, like I said, it's an appropriate match to have as the main event of our 15th anniversary.
I'm a really big fan of Kevin Blackwood. What made you guys kind of want to strap the rocket? It sounds crazy, but what made you guys kind of want to invest in Kevin Blackwood as one of the faces of C4 Wrestling?
I mean, he's really good.
That's great. That's so good. Yeah.
He was coming up for us back in 2018. I want to say he first came up for us, and that crew of him, Garcia, Puff, and Kevin Bennett, who hasn't been up yet since the start of COVID. But they were the Buffalo Boys. Everyone knows about the Buffalo Boys, and everyone knows what happened to them. And then then the accident happened, and I stayed in touch with, I kept checking on Garcia and Blackwood, and they were both good to go. I just was like, I want to do stuff with you guys. And then, right before COVID hit, the last main event of any show we did was Garcia and Blackwood versus Violence is Forever. And also the first time I put any belts, any championships on Americans were Garcia and Blackwood, again, right before COVID hit.
Right.
So they were my C4 champion and my underground champion, our underground champion, our K4 champion. And they're just, I think they're both like Garcia and Blackwood are just two very talented guys. I think everyone's seeing what Garcia can do, and I'm sure they'll be seeing what Blackwood can do soon enough. Definitely. And I think he just needs a few more high profile opportunities, and he'll be right up there.
Blackwood definitely has like a next up vibe about him for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
So 15 years is as Reg was saying earlier, it's a long time. There's a lot of history. for 15 years. Like C4 has been a launch pad for so many Canadians.
Right.
At least, like, not, obviously work. You got to work everywhere to build your reputation, like on a nationwide sense. But like C4, you've quite regularly, even still now with like Uno and Stu, they've been, you've had them showing up pretty much every show
for 15 years. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 15 years. Yeah. So, like, I just want to go through the history of it, of like how, what brought forth the idea to start a wrestling company for you?
I mean, like, so the shortest version, like, I was a big wrestling fan as a kid. Really fell into it in like summer of '92. So the first big main event I remember was Bret and Bulldog from SummerSlam, which is a very distinct style of match to really like have a core impact on me. Because if 6 months earlier it would have been Hogan Undertaker as the like was on top, like so that was when I first got into wrestling, and like I was also the very limited WCW we got up here. It was like Sting and Cactus Jack at Beach Blast '92 was like another one that I remember loving. So those two very stylistic kind of things really stuck with me. And I was just like a huge fan up here when it wasn't as accessible. Like Raw would be on the best. Like I remember when we discovered that Raw was on like Tuesday at 4 p.m. on TSN the day after it aired live. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember a family trip.
Speaking my language right now.
My dad and took me and my siblings to Florida once in March break of '94. And I was so excited because we stayed at a hotel. It must have been like, we drove down Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and I remember like it was Monday night. I'm like, this hotel is USA Network. So, like, I remember it's like
life of a wrestling fan.
You get to watch it live tonight.
I love it.
So, anyways, I was a big fan growing up, huge fan, and then probably like '99, 2000 when it was everywhere. Like the things I dreamed of happening to wrestling was like. It was everyone, and like everyone at school loved it. I'm like, I don't know if I kind of fell from it for a while. And at that point, I really got into like film and the local film community and helping out on that. And so kind of, I went to school for script writing in college. And then coming out of that, I got involved helping out with a local promotion here. And after about 6 months of helping them, realizing like they're just going to do their own thing.
Right.
And it's kind of just like and I don't blame them. I'm just some like 20-year-old kid. I would like you get people like who want to put their input on your promotion all the time, but it's not my place. So after that, so 2005 and 2006, I worked with Montreal's IWS to put on 2 shows in this area. And like, at the time, I'm sure they could have looked at me as some money mark or whatever. Like it wasn't that much money, but I was trying to put on some shows here because they were the hot thing, and there's a whole other thing I can get into in a minute about Ontario not being open to run shows really for anybody. Okay. So, anyways, I live on the Quebec side in Gatineau, Quebec, and which is right next to Ontario, which is basically New York, New Jersey. Yeah. To clear that up. In Ontario, at that point, wrestling was regulated by a very archaic athletic commission, and Quebec was not like so wide open. So I ran those 2 IWS shows on in the Quebec side of things, and then after the second one with them, at the same time, what was happening in Ontario was Lufisto took the Ontario Athletic Commission to court because they weren't letting her wrestle guys. And that was a big thing. And she was, I think it was like a human rights kind of case. Because they were stopping her from making a living. Right. And so that began like dominoes falling in Ontario to deregulate. And the Ontario Athletic Commission stepped away from wrestling. So then in 2007, I was like, I'm going to run a show. I ran another show with a friend of mine in Montreal under the Interspecies Wrestling banner, my friend Mike. And like those 3, so the Interspecies Wrestling show and the IWS shows to me were like my education in putting on a show and learning and making connections. And fortunately, that experience surrounded me with a lot of really, really good people to be around at that time, which was Kevin Steen, El Generico, getting in the loop with, getting in contact with the Shikara guys, Uno and Stu. So it was
shout out to Sexy Eddie for no reason.
Sexy Eddie, no, for sure, definitely. He was one of the first people I booked for my first C4 show.
Right.
So I could have fallen into a crowd of a lot of shindy workers, but fortunately I didn't. And by luck, I connected with a good crop of people. And when the next step after that was finding a venue in the city, because there are not many of them. Ottawa is like notorious for being known as like in between Montreal, Toronto, right? So like any touring acts will always skip over Ottawa most frequently. We got a million people here, but it's not Toronto, it's not Montreal, and there aren't a lot of 300 to 800 person venues in the city.
Gotcha.
So anyways, I managed to find a venue in Ottawa. It was a Knights of Columbus Hall, lowerish ceilings, but they were willing to let me put on a show, which was awesome because no one else was. So I remember at first it was going to be an interspecies wrestling show with Mike, and I said I'm not going to pass on this venue. Do you want to do it or not? He got, I don't want to say cold feet, but he wasn't ready to do it at the time. So I'm like, all right. I started thinking of different names, and C4 Capital City Championship Combat is what I decided to go with, and we were off November, whatever it was, 2007.
The ceilings were really low in that Knights of Columbus building too. Like looking back at it now, because like Preston Event Center's got
it's an enormous
ceiling, massive ceiling space, and like so you go back and like I like to throw on. I like Speedball's first C4 match against Uno.
Oh yes,
and I'm like they're gonna hit it. They're gonna hit it.
Yeah, the first show we used was this awful 6-sided ring, which was full like regular 8-foot posts, like so.
Oh no,
it was difficult to work with. And then by the second show, I bought Shakar's old ring, and that became our ring. And that ring was a piece of shit, but no one told me that before I got it because it was a wooden frame, and so no matter how hard you tightened it, the ropes would be loose.
Right.
And like nobody gave me that heads up before I bought it, but here I am. Quack found a sucker. I bought the ring. The legend was that it was built by 911, which I thought, well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Which is entirely possible. Like that scene. So yeah, got that ring, and that was the low ring. And then it was always a struggle with those ropes. I rebuilt the ropes a few years later, but then when the venue closed, we finally bought a new ring in 2011 because we were at a point where we could afford a proper ring, and so that was like the low style, and it really worked with that venue. Like the ceilings were low, but they're still about 13, 14 feet, and if we had the 18 inches off the ground plus like a 6-foot post, you still have room to do stuff. Right. Occasionally, chandeliers will get broken in that venue, but they loved us. That venue loved us, and then they sold the building, and unfortunately, they were looking for a new space, and they told us we were their priority to keep when they moved to a new space, but that just never happened. Gotcha. So, yeah, we saw the bar numbers for a year's worth of shows, and we were really helping them.
Right.
So
wrestling at the bar, that's what it'd be like. They don't get it.
Yeah, and so then I was fortunate enough to get to St. Anthony / Preston Event Center, and thankfully they stayed open through the pandemic, and we're still there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a whole other beast too. Like speaking of the pandemic, because there's there was a lot of wrestling in America that came back relatively quickly after things closed down. Canada, we went like super ham on the COVID restrictions, which also, did good things for like our case numbers and things like that comparatively. But like on the side of it where, you're watching all this other wrestling happening in the States, like when you come, when you're coming back, one, I admire the way you managed to do it, like still really safely. Yep. You always have those nice You always have those nice little PSAs going out, before every show. Putting in any effort on it's better than no effort, at least,
Definitely.
But has that, like, I guess, what, like, your mindset coming out of the pandemic, like, what's the goal of, like those first couple shows?
like, so going through more, it was 18 months without running, and that was just, the emotions are everywhere. Like at first it's first when it first happened, I'm like, okay, maybe in like 2 months we'll be back. Like maybe things will be all better. Like this will pass because the whole world's going to come together and we're going to beat this. And anyways, so those first few months happened, and then as the more time went on, I'm like, if any, like, what is C4? C4 doesn't exist. We're not running. Like one of the big boosts was when we were able to do Garcia versus Kevin Koo on the IWTV Mania weekend shows 2 years ago, and that was like, I'm so proud of that. People love that match. I'm glad we got to put it on. And so that gave me a high, and then there's just like lots of highs and lows in that downtime. One thing, speaking of consistency, one thing I made sure to do is we had the weekly mixtape on IWTV every week, and credit goes to Matt Hack for that, my editor. He did an amazing job always going to our archives and putting something together. So it was always trying to have something there. And then summer 2021, first I was looking at doing an outdoor show, but logistically that wasn't working out because there were still restrictions, and it was the venue that would have hosted it outdoors wasn't stern about doing it. Meanwhile, all this time there was a chance I was losing Preston Event Center or St. Anthony's Hall, because basically the owner of that didn't want to have to deal with, in his mind, losing business forever. So there was a good chance with that. There was a good chance we were going to lose that venue. So I had said I was working towards doing this outdoor show in September of 2021, which was going to be Fighting Back as a return show. And then a few things, like it was falling apart with the outdoor version of it. I reached out to St. Anthony's, and I'm like, can we do one? Like, if you guys are selling the building, can we do one last show? And the owner's like, oh, I found someone to take over the hall for me. Just come in and meet them. I told them about you. And then anyways, they loved us. They wanted to keep us. We got grandfathered into with these new owners. And we came back in September 2021 with Fighting Back, which was the Garcia Bailey show. And we put on, like, I remember being really nervous. We're doing 50% capacity. I put tickets on sale, like online only, and they sold out literally within like 30 seconds. And I was like, wow, okay. And so then September, November, December all went really, really well. And things were looking really hopeful. And then Omicron happened. And then we were back to closing down. But that whole time, I'm like, okay, well, hopefully we can get through this. And I know the audience is there, and we'll come back. And then we came back it was supposed to be January, but then we came back last March with Fantastic Voyage. And then April was Time and Tide, May, Friday. And those shows really got us into a groove. Things have been going really well. I won't lie. September, I think this past September, we had 2 shows, and I think that kind of split our audience and really hurt us. We did Double Impact, which was a tag tournament, and then at the college that we run occasionally. And then we did our season premiere, which I'm blanking on the name right now, but with Warhorse vs. Uno. And neither show drew that well. So I was like, oh, it's over. We had a good run.
Silver Bullet.
Yeah, Silver Bullet. Yeah. So when I say a bad crowd, it was still like 300 people.
Right.
And I know like a lot of promoters are like, what are you, an idiot? That's a good crowd. But budgets are expensive right now. Running is expensive. Especially if, like, a lot of my roster is American. That's American money.
Yep.
And an American dollar is worth $1.30 Canadian. So those dollars add up. Transportation is very expensive right now. Anyways, all those things, mounting costs. September didn't do great, but then October went really, really well. Season of the Witch did really, really well for us. And I'm like, right now, somewhere in between Silver Bullet, Season of the Witch feeling right now. I'm hoping things are good, and I'm hoping we can end the year off on a high note. And I'm just nervous and excited, and I'm hoping tomorrow goes smoothly.
Definitely. We talking a lot about things going on in Canada, the dealings with pro wrestling out there. How important is it to showcase Canadian talent? Because I know, like you said, you use a lot of American pro wrestlers, and some companies tend to just, go for the outside talent because that's what their crowds want. But how important is it for you? Because I know like wrestlers like Junior Benito, I'm super into. How important was it to showcase what's the next step from Canada?
So like one of my goals has always, like when I first started C4, my goal was, like, a lot of people would call it, like, used to call us Canadian PWG, which we're not, in the sense that we're not funded by High Spots. We don't have thousands of dollars to fly in all these people,
right?
Or however they used to operate back then. So, but I would still be like, okay, at least one carload of American talent, like Northeast US, at least a couple cars out of Quebec, like Montreal, and then a couple of cars from Southern Ontario, like Toronto area, and then a core group of locals. And that's how I, like, everyone who was kind of basically at the time within a drive, like an 8-hour range, 8 to 10 hour range, driving distance. I just wanted to try and showcase the best. Because a lot of the shows that ran, local shows, would just be like locals.
Right.
And no one's getting anything out of that. Sure, they're getting reps in, but they're not learning anything. They're not making connections. And Canada's a huge country, and I get that traveling in Canada is very difficult. We're bigger than the US with 1/10 of the population. So major urban centers are spread out a lot. Right. So, and a lot for a lot of guys being able to travel to the States is not possible because of the restrictions of trying to work in the States as a wrestler. You either get in there carefully and not entirely legally.
I mean, we know what happened with Speedball, so
yeah. Like same thing almost happened to Uno and Stu. Like a lot of people, it happens, and that derails careers. Like those are 5 years. Like Speedball got very lucky that Europe was blown up like it was at the time, that he was able to still get over to Europe, and then through that way go to DDT and keep going and building himself up. But a lot of people would have just stopped at that point.
Right.
Because that's like 5 years. Okay, well, I'm in my mid-20s or whatever. What's the point? So anyways, my goal was always to mix up talent. I never just wanted to be locals only thing, because that doesn't do anything for anybody.
Gotcha.
And I mean, I'd like to have a roster full of the best internationally, but financially I can't. So meeting in the middle, I think, benefits everybody. Younger or newer or Canadian talent gets a chance to work with people that don't work other places.
Right.
They get to network with these people, and then those talent who are coming up here from other places are getting to get a chance to work someone they don't work. They're like, I remember early on, especially in those first 5 or 6 years, using a lot of Northeast talent who were coming up here and really blown away with our crowds, because they're used to working in the arena or wherever with all these fans who just come and sit on their hands and aren't impressed by anything, no matter what they're doing. Just like think about those arena shows for CCW. Like some of them were amazing, but then it got to a point where people were just coming there to like not be like, people are killing themselves for them and not popping for anything.
Vuvuzela or whatever it's called, just to like get their shit off.
Yeah. So them coming up here, they were seeing a crowd that's like, they'll get blown away by the work, but they're not spoiled, fortunately. So it really worked for everybody. And yeah, my goal has always been to give opportunities to work new people for especially for local talent. And like you mentioned Junior, like he's someone who, when we're talking about the pandemic, going back a second, when we talk about the pandemic shutting everything down, there's a lot of people who are like, okay, well, I'm not going to keep working on myself. But there were those who also like, okay, well, when this ends, I'm going to be ready for it.
Right.
Junior was one of those guys. Hot Stepper McRae was another one. Like, these were young guys who were like, okay, well, I'm going to take this time to get ready for when my opportunity comes. And that's why, like, I've tried to give opportunities to Junior. That's why McRae is working with Violence is Forever tomorrow. I'm trying to trying to give people opportunities. This is like, not that I'm some gatekeeper or something, but if I can help someone along the road, yeah.
It's the strategy of matchmaking that I really like to see, which is you take your best guys and they wrestle everyone else's best guys instead of just the other best guys from their area. Because then everybody has a chance to, like, and you're like junior this year actually is like a really good example. Alex Shelley, Jeff Cobb, Anthony Green, all of those matches. Like every time I see Junior, I just love Junior more and more.
Right.
Because I'm seeing him like survive against Jeff Cobb, manhandling him for the better part of like 15 minutes. And he's still, like it's such a intelligent way to show.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same thing I did with Bailey 12, 13, or 11, 10 years ago. Was he's like, obviously a standout at Quebec. I'm going to bring these people up here and let them have, like, actually, Uno was the first one to really work with him. And then Kevin asked to work with him on a show, and they immediately had chemistry in a Kevin being the shit out of Speedball way. But like, I'm proud of the fact that match went on and happened other places. And like when I did like Bailey versus Biff was another match that I put together first. And then you see Beyond do it. You see PWG do it. Right. And it's like, I mean, that doesn't really mean anything in the long run, but it's like, cool. I at least had a good idea.
Like, crossing the line 9, Bailey versus Gresham is like that. Yeah. Like that one. You're talking about Gresham coming up a lot too. And like, that's what, 2017, 16.
I cannot tell you.
I think, I don't know.
Like 15 years is a long time, but it's also when you're doing shows month to month, it just like, I remember, like, you talk about it and I remember it, but it's kind of, it's also a blur.
It feels like yesterday and also like forever ago at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah. 15 years. So like, if there's a future promoter watching the show right now, that's like, man, that's my dream. I want to start a wrestling promotion. 15 years, you've amassed probably a wealth of knowledge, like
knowledge. That's about it. But
but if you had any like lessons or wisdom to impart down to the future promoters of the world,
right? Because I've thought about throwing a show before too, and I'm like, it sounds crazy. So
I think every wrestling fan has thought about it at some point. It's just like,
I mean,
some of us have the means to actually try it, or like the balls to do it. You know what I mean? So like for those people,
but like the quickest way to stop being a fan is by putting on shows.
Exactly.
Like it's like the quickest way to stop loving it is by seeing behind the scenes too much.
Definitely.
And again, that's why I do it once a month. The only shows I go to are my own right now. It's like I wish I could get excited going to other shows. I just. Like the only product I got interested, like been able to really watch the last few years, I watch AEW because I enjoy seeing people I know doing really well for themselves. And that's a product that like I'm not comparing myself at all to AEW. I can see a lot of the same method in matchmaking and stuff I would have done. And I mean
AEW is the baby of ROH and PWG. So like,
sure, just putting on
so much.
So. Well, I mean, AEW is just like, it's the progression of the last 15 years of indies, right?
Exactly.
So I'm able to enjoy that, watch that, and enjoy it. But the quickest way to stop being a fan is getting involved, and so that's the first bit of advice. And the other one is you're going to lose money. Like, although
that's the most important part to say.
Right now. Although 2018, 2019 was a lot hotter everywhere, there is a good chance you won't. Like there is if you're able to tap into the right market, like you might you could do pretty well, but it's still a lot of work. And then that number one bit of advice, as I said earlier, consistency. If you're going to try and do this, consistency, and that's that's why, like, when I ran, like I said, I ran my first show November 2007. I needed to have a follow-up date to tell those fans when the next show would be, because anyone else who ran around here, it was really kind of like, here's our show, the next one will happen when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 80s and 90s, Ottawa was not like a wrestling town. Like historically, like going back 50 or 60 years it was, but like like growing up, WWE, we were like if we were lucky, sea level. Like there were a couple of years where they didn't even run here. So it was building, the consistency for me was building trust in a fan base and not lying to that fan base. And I was being honest with that fan base. And so just being open about things. And like if you see our show is advertised, you know that people are going to work hard and you're going to get what's promised, or at least the best attempt to. And so, yeah, when I booked that first show, I basically went in with the following plus a year's worth of dates at that venue. And that's how I always book like 18 months in advance in terms of dates, just so even those dates can be really bad ones for me personally, like in terms of, oh, I guess I don't have these people because I just happen to be running like full gear weekend or whatever. And that's in the Northeast. So I'm going to lose quite a few people possibly coming up that way or being available.
Right.
But yeah, just always being consistent has been I've just said it like 20 times, but consistency is my top piece of advice. And then, yeah, being honest with your audience. If someone's not going to be there, just tell them as soon as you know.
Please tell us immediately. We don't want to wait until right before the match. That's just not fair to us.
Like, so there's another independent promoter in town who he's best known for his YouTube interviews. And that's all I'll say. He named himself after a popular Anthony Hopkins character.
Yes. I know exactly who you're talking about.
So he ran a giant show in the summer of 2007 at the exhibition, which is basically like a massive fair. Mm-hmm. And he ran it like an 8,000 seat arena. And it was like, looking back on it, the lineup is kind of crazy. It was PCO versus AJ Styles was announced. It was supposed to be Christian versus Jeff Jarrett for the NWA title.
Wow.
Brett was announced for it. Brett was like the big draw. Brett was announced for it. Like Coco Beware was on this show. Greg Valentine, Larry Poff. It was like one of those legend shows. And the show sold like 5,000 or 6,000 tickets. Like it was packed. Mm-hmm. But Brett wasn't there. And they did not announce that until intermission or after intermission. It was
like my God. That's crazy. After intermission too.
And on top of that, Jarrett decided he didn't want to wrestle or something. So the main event became Christian, AJ, and PCO in a 3-way. Wow. So anyways, they announced that, and like the energy sucked out of the room. All this to say, a year later, they ran another arena and they had maybe 200 people in it. Right. Because once you lose that trust with your audience, it's especially in indie wrestling, where getting someone out to a show is very difficult.
Like you're lucky if fans show up. Like you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And trust is a big part of that, because there's a lot of people who will, okay, well, I'll take a chance on this independent wrestling. And then they go to an awful show with people playing Monday Night Raw. Yeah. And it's like, well, I'm not going to, like, I've seen
not coming back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the honesty factor ties into that, because, yeah, like, I mean, I remember 2011 having Raven booked. And then, like, it was a very long day, but he was communicating with me, and then he was still not there when the show had started. He was, I think, in Chicago, and there were all these flight issues. And like what I told people online, I'm like, there's a chance he will not be here. I just want you guys to know that. And because I think we were honest, maybe like 2 people online decided not to come in.
Right.
And then he ended up showing anyway. He showed up at like 11:15 at night, and it was an incredible, stressful process, but he was there. But I'd like to think that all the people who came and saw the show enjoyed themselves regardless of him showing up, and appreciated the fact that they were told before heading in, there's a chance he won't be here. Mm-hmm. And just, yeah, that just goes to being honest with the audience. If there's a change to a card, I try and let people know as soon as possible. Like it killed me last month with Season of the Witch when I got word from Bucks Belmar that afternoon that he's like, I'm at the hospital. I might be losing my foot in the next 48 hours.
Oh shit.
And yeah, it was a bummer to announce, but that's like, I got to tell people. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, he's okay, and he'll be here tomorrow night. But yeah, so there's another long-winded answer. Sorry.
You talked about tomorrow night, so you got a big 15 years. It's a milestone. Yeah, there's no other way to look at it. 15 years is a long time in anything, relationships,
anything,
like a job, but like especially holding down an indie wrestling promotion it's not exactly like the most stable business, So 15 years, that's that's like kind of golden anniversary almost, really. But so Bucks Belmar, he hasn't been up since 2019, I think.
Yeah, like I had forgotten he had been up in 2019. Actually, so someone's like, he teamed with TDT against Darby and Butcher and Blade.
Yeah,
and I totally forgot about that because I was like, has he wrestled at Preston? But yeah, he had a few start and stops before. Like he was our champion, then he got injured, then he basically walked away from wrestling for a few years, and then he came back again, and then it was kind of like a couple of one-offs here and there.
Yeah. Right.
But right now, I think he's in a really good space. He's got a young family. He's doing he's healthy. He didn't lose his foot, and he'll be here and back tomorrow night. So
against Junior Benito and Stu Grayson,
that's
looking fantastic. I want to make sure people are watching this on IWTV on Tuesday, or or I want to make sure that if they're in the Ottawa area or anywhere really in the Ontario Quebec border area. Get out to this. Right. But got Violence is Forever defending the C4 tag titles against Shane Hawk and Hot Stepper McCrae Martin. Kevin Blackwood's defending the C4 championship against Jonathan Gresham.
Super hot.
Just announced today, James Stone with Vanessa Craven taking on Lufisto.
Yep.
What else do we got here? Josh Bishop and Manders. Manders is getting up here because I think he was Friday the 13th. He was supposed to be up, right?
He was, and then he realized COVID certain restrictions were going on still.
Right.
But anyways, he didn't make it then. He's coming up now.
Good. Awesome. What else am I missing? Oh, Isaiah Broner's open contract.
Yes. That's awesome that Isaiah Broner's being showcased and featured more. He's definitely on his way too. I'm excited to see that.
Definitely, yes.
I'm interested to know who's answering that open contract too, because
I mean, people enjoyed what they saw of him last month. I think I want to give people more of the same of that for another show.
That's just that's a scary man to be answering their open challenge.
Right up.
He's got a tremendous presence, and I'm very excited to see in long term what he can do. Because I think he's got a lot of tools, and I'm excited to see what he can do. And I'm hoping in that window when he's on the indies, I'll have an opportunity to do some stuff with him.
How does we talked a little bit about this show's going to be, it's kind of staggered onto the IWTV platform. How does kind of pushing the show and getting people to tune into IWTV, is that a difficult thing to do to try to, because there's a lot, sometimes IWTV has 10 shows going on at the same time. You know what I mean?
I mean, fortunately, like last month we didn't get a premiere stream just because it's like they had so much going on, and I don't want to be one of 5 on a night, or it's not 5, it's like one of 2 or 3 on a night. And I think they don't want to have that many on a night. So because it does divide attention, no one is too happy about that. My hope is, I think hopefully going forward, I've cleared with them, is the Tuesday following shows.
Gotcha.
The Tuesday at 8 p.m. is when we're going to have the premiere streams. And hopefully people tune in. It's like the venue itself doesn't have strong internet capabilities, and that's why we haven't done live streams.
Gotcha.
We did one last year because we were at a college and they had a broadcast program, and they're like, let's help with the wrestling stream. They're like, okay. We had probably had the best setup for any indie stream ever, with like giant monitors and all this stuff in the backstage. But yeah, and I'm okay with like doing a couple days delayed, because Tuesday night there's not much going on, so hopefully people check us out. Whereas a Friday night, there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
to try and get some attention in terms of viewers.
Right.
So yeah, Tuesday at 8. Like during the pandemic as well, we had a pretty standard. I want to say Thursday at 8 was our when Uncharted wasn't running. We had the mixtapes dropping every Thursday at 8, which is a good consistent way to get people checking us out. And I think a lot of people discovered us during the pandemic because of that. So, but no, I love working with IWTV, and hopefully more people keep checking us out.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely be watching C4 15th anniversary show.
Mm-hmm.
So 15 years down, how about the next 15?
I don't know, dude. Like I hear people being
how
like,
about the next one even?
Like,
right.
Like I hear people being like, here's the 15, here's the 15 more. I'm like, I'm gonna be like old, but and it was
You're like 15 years. That sounds crazy.
It was one thing from my mid 20s through 30s to be like a blur because of it. I don't know why. I mean, but hey, I don't know. I'm excited.
You are more seasoned now. You would be able to take on the 15 years a lot different than the first 15 years.
Sure. Yeah, I think like as long as the crowd is still coming out, I it's to a degree certain things run themselves. I mean, in terms of the show mechanics and operation, like I don't feel I need to micromanage anybody because I think my booking is I put people together who know what they're doing,
right?
And they're going to work hard because we have a good crowd and people are watching. So bell to bell is never my concern, really. I mean, I put a lot of thought into it. I always do. I'm always changing things, but it's the logistics of everything else on show day that really stresses me out. So, but yeah. I don't know what the next 15 years will bring. We shall see. Hopefully smooth sailing. Hopefully everyone's happy and healthy enough to be all together in places that like shows. So fingers crossed. That's all I can hope for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Reg, do you have anything else to ask Mark?
No, I think that's I think we're hammered home that you need to check out C4 if you're in the area tomorrow, and definitely need to check out C4 on IWTV. Watch the back catalog. Some of your favorite professional wrestlers have crossed over to Canada from America and done great things. They have a lot of amazing Canadian indie talent, some future names that are gonna be seen and heard for years to come.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's just I think for me, you know, like I've been a Bret Hart fan for my entire life. Like he's been my number one wrestler, you know, for as long as I like pro wrestling. So Canada has always held a special place in my heart. So every time I see some great pro wrestling out there, I'm just so excited about it. And that's why C4 has been leading the way for a very long time as one of the best Canadian independent wrestling promotions there are. So we just want to show our love and appreciation to everything that you guys have going on. As I said, Mike and I talk about C4 very often on Indeed because we love everything that you guys do. And we're just excited for you guys to have this 15th anniversary and move forward with great.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And no, it means a lot to me when I see someone like Junior getting recognized on the BWI 500. It means like all that sort of, when I hear recognition from people out there, or not recognition, but being seen in what we try and do, it means a lot because I know people are watching NWTV. Yeah, I know there's 350 to 550 fans who come to our shows, but it's like, do we exist in the greater scheme of indie wrestling? So when I hear people speak about us, it really means a lot. And I truly appreciate what you guys do. And I truly appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me. And thank you.
Well, yeah, like for me, it's, you know, like I'm a Canadian. I'm the only Canadian, I think, on the Body Slam staff. So for me to have like this, you know, platform on their network to be able to talk about independent wrestling, like a goal of mine is, okay, I want to make sure I'm including my Canadian content, what's local to me. Very first episode of Indeed I ever did. It was like before Reg was even on board, and it was just me sitting here talking about what wrestling I watched that week. The very first show I talked about on episode 1 was Time and Tide from this year.
Thank you very much.
And yeah, like C4 is special to me. Like I see so much good. I see so many amazing wrestlers. Like especially like for me, I live in the I live in the Hamilton area, so
yeah.
Toronto, wealth of talent. The Ottawa area, I don't know what's in the water in Gatineau, and like but some fantastic like
the Keep. Uno and Stu. Uno
True.
and Stu have done great with the Keep with their school, and they've worked very hard to keep that going, and they've been putting out some really good talent, and I look forward to seeing who else they put out, and I mean, it's something that I know they wanted to start up. Like Uno's been wanting to start a school for like 10 years, and finally, in the last few years, he was able to get it going. I mean, that did all coincide with, oh, I'm signed to AEW now. Oh, there's a pandemic, and I also have a wrestling school, so that all worked out nicely. But yeah, there's been schools up here in the past, and there have been solid people. Like for a long time, I'd say the most notable person to come out of Ottawa was Portia Perez. She did pretty good for herself, but that she also was, unfortunately, at the time was like either Shimmer or Nowhere was really was showcasing females like what she was doing. So, yeah, and I think Ottawa is also, I don't want to say we're isolated because we're not, but more or less there's Ottawa and then 2 hours all around of nothing, whereas Toronto, or like Mike, like Hamilton, Toronto, like that whole 2 hours in any direction, there's people. And Reg for 5 hours, wherever you are, there's people.
Yeah, seriously.
But so, like, and that's also helped with the growth of C4, which is there are other shows running, but it's not like there's 20 shows within a 1 hour driving distance to where I am. Over the course of the next month. Like, I'm very lucky where we've been able to have a nice little pocket. And there's other shows that pop up and people do okay. But I'm very proud of, again, the reputation we built locally as well as amongst other fans.
Right. Well, a lot of people around here are proud of the reputation you've built. And I told you earlier before the show, I had a little surprise for you. And
yes, I'm excited.
I wanted to, again, 15 years, it's a milestone, and it's something very, very special. You've touched a lot of lives over the years with C4 Wrestling. And I reached out to a few people who may have graced the C4 ring at some point in time or another. Told them that you'd be joining me on the show today. And asked if they had any words for you or C4, just, to celebrate your 15th anniversary. And I reached out to a lot of people. I did get a few videos back.
Oh, that's amazing.
Can't blame a lot of people for not wanting to entertain an email from a random stranger going, "Hey, can you send a video for my podcast?" But we did get some back, and I wanted to play those for you.
Oh, awesome.
It's C4's 15th anniversary, and guys, Ricky Wilde is here to let you know that you literally run the best wrestling promotion in Canada. Thank you. Thank you for putting this on. Thank you for making this a thing, and thank you for keeping it going. We are so good goddamn proud to be a part of this, to have this, to let this be a part of wrestling in Canada at this point moving forward. So for the last 15 years and for the next 15 moving forward, thank you, gentlemen, for C4.
Hey, Mark, I owe you one of these at least for recording one for me too, so got to reciprocate here. But thank you for everything you've done. You, Steven, everyone else involved in C4 have created and helped nurture a platform and a scene that have helped so many people. Personally, on my end, C4 has been the first place that I did commentary to, and kind of spiraled out of control since then. So thanks for that. And for giving me my name too, when I just want to be plain old Bobby or even Professor Bob, you chose Dr. Bob and seemed to have worked out pretty well since then. So thank you for everything, and on a personal level for being such a great guy too, to chat about wrestling and non-wrestling things alike. And it's always good to hear from you. So congrats all on all the success. Hope C4 continues on for many, many, many more years. And I think I speak for everybody. We appreciate you so much. So thanks very much, and cheers.
Hey Mark, it's Josh Bishop. I just wanted to say congrats on 15 years of C4, and thank you for everything you do for me. I really appreciate it. I look forward every month to come to C4. It's honestly probably one of my favorite places, if not my favorite place to work. The crowd's awesome, and that just goes to show that you've built up just this awesome company for people and fans to come to over the last 15 years. And I really thank you for letting me be a part of it and believing in me enough to put the Underground title on me. And I just want to say thank you. And I'll see you Friday if you see this before then. But if not, I'll see you next month then. Thank you. I just want to say thank you. Congrats, Mark. I appreciate you.
15 years. Wow. 15 years. C4 Wrestling had its very first event. Now, fast forward 15 years later, C4 Wrestling is, in my opinion, one of the best independent promotions in all of Canada. Man, 15 years. All I can really say from the bottom of my heart is thank you to not only the fans that supported C4 Wrestling since day one, but thank you to you, Mark. Not only for giving guys like me opportunities, but for never giving up on C4 Wrestling. Thank you, Mark.
Mark, congratulations on 15 years of C4 Wrestling. It's really cool to see that you have created this product, this show that's garnered this reputation of being the best independent wrestling promotion in all of Canada and arguably top 10 across all of North America. Now, I was told to keep this video short, and I'll do my best because I could go on and on about how thankful and grateful I am for you. Back in 2017, you took a kid who got screwed over by the wrestling business, and you helped him out. You brought him in, you treated him like family. And I still feel that to this day. From doing ring crew and setup and security, not setup. I already said ring crew, security, same thing. To doing dark matches, to now being a regular performer for C4. And it's an incredible feeling. And I am so happy that C4 continues to grow and flourish, and I get to be a part of that. And so I hope with all that you have done for me, I can repay you in some way, whether it's giving the best show possible, giving you a helping hand wherever I can. I just want to show my gratitude and appreciation for you. So thank you, Mark. And once again, congratulations on 15 years. Here's to another 15.
There it is.
Hey there, Mark.
It's the world champ!
In the best way possible, because it is your name. I pronounce your last name, but we all know I would butcher it like many other people have before. I just want to take a second to send a message since you are celebrating the anniversary of C4 Wrestling. I believe it's been 15 years, man, 15 glorious years. And although you didn't have the wherewithal to book me in the very beginning, you did come to your senses some years later, and we have had over a decade of time working together. And I'm forever grateful for it. I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be Impact World Champion. I wouldn't be traveling the world, making a living, putting a roof over my head and food on my family's table.
Wow.
Doing what I love without people and promoters like you that actually care. You do a great job. You have sellout crowds. You put an amazing show for that community in Ottawa, and you mean even more to the wrestlers across North America. I just want to send this message to you from the bottom of my heart, from Josh Alexander, from Josh LeMay, most importantly, Mark Pollesel. Did I butcher it? I don't know. We'll find out. I love you. Thank you so much for all you've done for C4, for pro wrestling in Canada, for pro wrestling in general. And yeah, here's to another 15 years.
Dude, that's awesome.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much. Josh would be here if I didn't happen to book against every Impact weekend for the next 6 months. And also something about Junior. When I started C4, it would have been like 4.
Right. That's crazy.
I measured time in juniors. I'm like 2 juniors old almost.
The bro was a baby when this started.
Yeah,
and now he's going to be wrestling tomorrow on the show. It's amazing, man. It's so cool.
But thank you very much. That means a lot. Thank you guys very much.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome, man. I just wanted to do something special for you.
That was awesome.
To celebrate the 15.
It's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, C4, they're on. Well, they're on Tuesday, but they're live tomorrow night from the Preston Event Center in Ottawa, Ontario. What's the name of the show?
Deep Rising.
There you go. Deep Rising. tune in. It'll be on IWTV next week. If you're in the Ottawa area, if you're anywhere, like if you're within like a decent,
I'll say 4 hours because you're a little bit past 4, so you have an excuse. I'll say 4-hour drive.
Oh no, like I don't care. I'm in Hamilton. I would like if I had a normal people back, I would be there. I would be there. I'd be on the Via Rail train. It's if you're in the area, go to the show. You're gonna end up finding a new thing to do every month on a Friday night.
Right.
Mark, where can the people find you or find C4 Wrestling online if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, at C4 Wrestling on Twitter and Instagram. I believe you can get to us at C4 Wrestling on Facebook as well, although something happened a long time. C4 Ottawa on Facebook, but C4 Wrestling should redirect you there as well. I've tried to start a C4 TikTok, which is like just pictures because I'm terrible at TikTok and I don't know what I'm an old man, I guess.
I get it.
But there is a C4 Wrestling on TikTok, but I mean, you're not going to see much there that you're not going to see other places.
Right.
And on IWTV. And if you haven't checked this out, it would be awesome if you did. Just give us a chance. I know there's so much content right now for people to like. The accessibility of indie wrestling is insane right now. And like if my 13-year-old self knew that there would be this, like my mind would be blown.
Unbelievable.
So just if you haven't checked this out, just give us a shot. I think you'll like what you'll see. People who like I say this about people in Ottawa anyways, and I extend this to a lot of like indie fans out there. There are two types of people in Ottawa. C4 fans and those who haven't been to a show yet. And I think that could be extended to a lot of people who watch indies regularly. If you're on IWTV watching Beyond or watching a bunch of other great promotions, I think we have something to offer that's unique, but also in line with what you're digging.
Right.
So check us out.
How about you, Reg? Where can everyone find you at?
You can find me at Righteous Reg on all your socials and every Saturday on Grab City Podcast if you want to hear me talk shit about WWE. So that's where we're going with this.
All right. Also,
and then on Indeed, whenever Mike's back is feeling good, baby.
And also righteousreg.bandcamp.com. Righteousreg.bandcamp.com.
Never forget. Never ever forget.
And yeah, me, find me. My Twitter handle's right there under my face. I'm here talking about indie wrestling with Reg on Thursdays.
Yep.
Saturdays, I like to talk about some All Elite wrestling with my buddy Adam. I do Dynamite post shows here on Body Slam now.
Yeah.
Took 6 weeks off for back pain and decided to come back and add a podcast. So, that was cool.
Let's go.
Like 3 shows now. Okay, I got this. Just want to say again, thank you for joining us today, Mark. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you, everyone watching, and we'll be back doing this next week, probably recapping the C4 15th anniversary show.
More than likely.
Have a good day.